Transfer portal season is here. The running back room is about to look very different. Everybody wants Marcus Freeman, and Notre Dame fans want answers. We're breaking it all down in today's mailbag.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome in. This is Locked On Irish, your daily home for Notre Dame football. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I graduated from Notre Dame. I'm a producer at Fox Sports, and I've been covering the Irish for the last 5 seasons. Thank you for making Locked On Irish your first watch or listen of the day on this Friday, December 19th. And happy Friday, everybody. I hope you're heading into a great weekend before the holidays. And before we get started, please make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel or following the show on your preferred podcast platform. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. All right, we've got a loaded mailbag on tap for you today, and we're going to dive straight into transfer portal season, what Notre Dame needs to add, how the running back room is going to be reshaped without Love and Price, and why these next few weeks are so important for the 2026 roster. We're also going to tackle some big picture questions about Marcus Freeman, what changed defensively as the season went on, and how Notre Dame is positioned moving forward both on and off the field. And then we're going to wrap things up with a positive question about the Notre Dame men's basketball team. Is there reason for hope? Could this team play in the NCAA tournament in March? We're going to tackle that at the end. Our first question comes from @GBellotti. Pick one of each. One realistic player on the current roster to return for next season and one dream transfer portal addition. So the obvious answer would have been Jeremiah Love, or I would have even put Jadarian Price, but both of them are now off to the NFL. So my #1 player I'd pick on the current roster to come back next season is going to be edge rusher Boubacar Traore. You simply need an elite pass rush to win at the highest level, and he is the best pass rusher on the entire team. His skill set is especially important when you consider the fact that Notre Dame is going to be without Kingston Biliamu-Asa for the early portion of next season because he suffered his torn ACL in the Syracuse game, so he's got a long recovery ahead. This is also his second ACL tear because he actually tore it the first time when he was back in high school at St. John Bosco out here in Southern California. So he's dealt with this before. He's obviously going to have much better resources to recover from this ACL tear, but it is a concern for him, and I do not expect he is going to be ready at the start of the year. He might not play until October of 2026. I think Notre Dame is going to be slow with him so that once he does get back out there on the field, he is 100%. But it's no secret that KVA is one of the best pass rushers on the team, even if he plays linebacker. So they're going to be without him next year. And who knows if Jalen Sneed is going to come back, because I think the conversation around Jalen Sneed changed significantly once KVA went down because, on senior day, I didn't think there was any chance that Sneed would come back next season. He's already been in college 4 years. He did not seem like a player who wanted to play in college for 5 years. But then once KVA went down, all of a sudden, Jalen Sneed's importance became a serious priority as it pertains to next season. So now I think Notre Dame was working really hard to keep him. And then you could have another pass rusher in Sneed. But if he leaves, then man, you're without Sneed, you're without KVA, and you don't want to be without Traore because he led the team in sacks, tackles for loss, and quarterback pressures last season. And there is nobody that Notre Dame can land in the transfer portal that would be as good as Boubacar Traore. Plus, if he comes back, I think he's going to be even better in 2026 than he was this past year because he'll be more than a year removed from his ACL injury. Usually when guys come back from an ACL tear, they're good in their first year back. We saw that with Traore. He didn't really show any signs of lingering issues, but it's really that second year after the injury where they're back to 100% and they're better than they were before. So I expect a big year from Boubacar Traore if he were to return. And at this point, I expect him to be on Notre Dame's roster next season. But honorable mention, Billy Schrauth. Schrauth had the best game of his career on one knee against USC. So imagine how good he could be if he's healthy for a full season. He was a second-team All-American, even though he only played in 7 games in 2025. And Notre Dame needs an elite offensive line next year to make up for the loss of Love and Price. A truly elite offensive line. We thought they could be an elite offensive line before the season started, but then Charles Jagasaw missed the entire year. Ashton Craig went down with an injury, and then Billy Schrauth went out with an injury. So they never really had an elite offensive line at any point this past year. But if Stroud comes back next year, that would be a big step forward to make that happen, because I'm not sure when or if Charles Jagasaw is going to be back. It seems like every update I hear on him has been negative. So at this point, I'm just hoping for the best for him, because I can't even imagine what he's going through as he tries to recover from that injury he suffered last 4th of July weekend when he broke his arm in that ATV accident. So his timetable is completely up in the air. Who knows when Ashton Craig is going to come back, because he tore his ACL as well. So you need an elite offensive line. You're going to be without your starting center. You don't know when Jagasaw is going to come back. So they really need Billy Schrauth next year as well. And at this point, I would say it's 50-50 whether Billy Schrauth comes back to Notre Dame or he heads to the NFL draft. All right, now as for the dream transfer candidate, I would take wide receiver Nick Marsh from Michigan State. We've talked about him on the show before. Notre Dame is very much involved in the Nick Marsh sweepstakes, because at this point, he's probably the most highly sought-after receiver in the transfer portal, and a lot of people would love to have him. But Notre Dame is certainly in the mix. It is my understanding that LSU is fighting for him as well. And in 2 years with the Spartans, Marsh racked up 100 receptions for over 1,300 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. And that was just in his true freshman and sophomore season. And keep in mind, the rest of that Michigan State offense was absolutely terrible. So he was putting up big numbers without a very talented quarterback and zero offensive line to protect said quarterback. So if you put him in Notre Dame's offense next year with C.J. Carr throwing him the ball, I would have very high expectations for him. I think he'd be the perfect replacement for Malachi Fields, because he's also a big body target. He's 6'3", 203 pounds. And in order to win at the highest level, you need to have skilled players who strike fear in defenses. Jeremiah Love certainly did that last year, and I would say Jadarian Price did as well. Malachi Fields on the outside did a good job of that, but they don't really have that one skilled player that defenses are going to have to game plan around. Like, I like Jordan Faison. I like Jaden Greathouse. I think Aeneas Williams is a really good player. But a true just game wrecker, Notre Dame doesn't have that right now. I think if they added Nick Marsh, he would fill that void. Another honorable mention real quickly here, defensive tackle, Mateen Ibirogba. He is from Wake Forest. Right now on the 24/7 transfer portal rankings, he is the number 2 player in the entire class right now. He would fill a huge position of need. He's a very impressive defensive tackle, very good at getting after the quarterback, and Notre Dame desperately needs defensive tackles because Gabriel Rubio is out of eligibility, same with Jared Dawson, and they're likely going to be without Jason Onye as well, even though I think they're trying to fight to keep him back. I just don't think it's going to happen because he's already been in college for 5 years, and you need a stout defensive line to win a championship, and I think if they were able to add Ibirogba, that would go a long way in getting that defensive line to where it needs to be. All right, next up, at Akil Ben, how many wide receivers should Notre Dame go after in the transfer portal, and what type of players should they be targeting? Well, I already mentioned Nick Marsh, and they need to move heaven and earth to get him, because I think he is their high priority target in the portal, not just at wide receiver over any other position. But if they get him, they would have a very strong trio of wide receivers that they'd start every game with. You'd have Marsh in the boundary, Jordan Faison out there in the field, and then Jaden Greathouse in the slot. I think Jaden Greathouse has been pondering whether to enter the transfer portal or stick around in South Bend. And at this point, I expect Jaden Greathouse to be back on the team next year. If he decides to change his mind and enter the transfer portal, then you definitely need 2 wide receivers. But at this point, I think you can be a little bit selective if you're able to get Nick Marsh. Because after those 3 wide receivers, let's assume that they are able to land Marsh, you have a lot of question marks. KK Smith has improved. He came on at the end of the year, but not enough to the point where I think you can consistently rely on him, especially against great defenses. So you could add a veteran like Will Pauling, who wasn't really on anybody's radar because he didn't have a great season in 2024, but he put up big numbers in 2023. And as soon as he got on the roster, he established himself as a quality wide receiver and also as a leader in that locker room. And he was ultimately elected captain. So that could be an option if there are talented, proven, experienced wide receivers out there, because behind the trio that I just mentioned, Notre Dame doesn't have any experienced, proven players. Like Micah Gilbert had shown flashes last year, but he was dealing with an injury throughout the spring and throughout most of the fall, so he needs to take a big step forward in his 3rd year with the program. Notre Dame really likes what they have in Logan Saldate, even though he's barely touched the field on Saturdays in the fall. I think he could push for playing time in the slot as the backup slot receiver behind Jaden Greathouse. Cam Williams started to see some action late in the year. Elijah Burris had a lot of promise as a true freshman, but didn't understand the playbook, as Mike Denbrock pointed out. So what's his timeline? I don't know. So you need to get Nick Marsh. You need to get one stud. And then after that, you can be pretty selective if you're able to get him, maybe add another veteran. But really, they just need one. They might need two, depending on who they get as that number one. Okay, at JRust IV asks, when do you expect to hear players committing to Notre Dame out of the transfer portal, and is the staff allowed to contact players who have already announced they are entering the transfer portal? Look, coaches are absolutely talking to guys in the portal, or maybe more specifically, the representation. I know that there are rules and that there are timelines and all this stuff, but coaches are getting around that. Most of the transfers kind of have an idea of where they're going during the season. Is that legal? No. Is it frowned upon? Probably, but it's just the reality of college football. And Mike Martin even said as much on the signing day press conference when he said that they already had an eye on some portal targets, and I think that they're probably pretty advanced in those conversations about getting those guys to come to Notre Dame. So as for the official announcements, I have a feeling it's going to be a lot like NBA free agency when guys announce where they are signing the minute it officially opens. So in NBA free agency, it's in the summer, and I think it starts at midnight Eastern, and then all of these guys announce they're signed and their deals and all of that stuff is already negotiated. It's like, wait, the free agency window just opened. How did you already have all that done? It's because they do it well beforehand. So I think what we're going to see is once the portal officially opens on January 2nd, you're going to see a ton of guys announce where they're committing. But at that point, there's probably going to be some rumblings about different prospects and where they're going. So we'll have a decent idea, but not for every player. I will say, these staffs want to keep things as close to the vest as humanly possible so they have an upper hand in negotiations. But once information starts to leak, other schools can use it to their advantage. All right, we have covered what Notre Dame needs in the transfer portal. Now let's shift gears and talk about what the running back room is going to look like next season and what all of this means for Marcus Freeman and the direction of his program. That's coming up next on Locked On Irish. Today's episode is brought to you by Wayfair. The holidays always show up faster than we expect, and if you're still putting together gifts, last-minute decor, or getting your home ready for guests, Wayfair has you covered. Whether you need a quick room refresh, new bedding, or those final seasonal touches, Wayfair makes it easy to get what you need fast. Wayfair truly is your one-stop shop for everything home, with decor, furniture, kitchen essentials, and gifts for every style and every budget, all delivered quickly and easily. It's so easy to shop by style. It helps you pick pieces that actually fit your home instead of guessing. The Wayfair items you order will instantly refresh your space without a big project, and Wayfair is perfect for gifting too. They have guides, tons of options, and something for everyone on any budget. No massive delivery fees, no stress. It is the best way to get your home holiday ready without running around to different stores. Get last-minute hosting essentials, gifts for all your loved ones, and decor to celebrate the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place live bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Their live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up, and you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. This past Sunday, the Buffalo Bills were down 21-0 in the first half against the Patriots, but if you live bet the Bills' money line at that point when they were down 3 touchdowns, you could have cashed out in a big way because Josh Allen got hot and led an incredible comeback, and the Bills won 35-31. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, welcome back to this Friday Mailbag edition of Locked On Irish. Before we get back to our questions, I wanted to thank you again for helping Locked On become the #1 sports podcast network. All right, let's get back to the question. And our next one is actually a two-parter, came from 2 different people. They were asking similar things. At Mitchie Roberts plus at Marks the Idol of the Idol 5591. With Love and Price headed to the NFL, what is the plan for the running back room next year? And knowing that Jaywan Sider prefers sticking with 2 running backs and assuming Williams stays, who do you think ends up as running back 2? Okay, so I do expect Aeneas Williams to stay. By all accounts, he's already signed his deal. He's going to be back for next season, which is great because there was a point during the regular season where I did not expect Aeneas Williams to return because he was unhappy with his role. And I get it. I mean, he contributed on a team that made it to the national championship as a true freshman and then barely saw the field as a sophomore. And then when he did see the field, he was running for touchdowns. Now, granted, it was in garbage time, but still, it was impressive. So Williams is going to be running back 1 next season. But beyond Aeneas, you have a bunch of question marks. When will Keidron Young be healthy? Because people were really excited about him last offseason, especially during the summer, but then he suffered a serious knee injury in training camp. And as we were talking about with KVA earlier on in the show, not all ACL recoveries are the same. So maybe he'll be back and ready to go if he really attacked his rehab, but maybe he won't. And how effective is he going to be in his first months back from a very serious knee injury, especially as a running back? Like when Jadarian Price ruptured his Achilles, and I understand it's a different injury, but still, when he ruptured his Achilles as a true freshman, it took him some time before he got back and he looked like the Jadarian Price that we all know now, who was just running rampant all over defenses and could break away for a touchdown at any point in time. And not to mention with Keidron Young, he has no experience and he just missed an entire season. So he could be good, he could be productive next year, but we don't know. You also have Nolan James Jr., who is going to be a redshirt freshman next year. People in the building are extremely high on him, and I understand it, like he flashed in the spring game, but man, whenever he was out on the field last year in garbage time, he looked small. He had 14 carries for 37 yards, and I'm not saying that that is a reflection of what he's going to be as a player later on, but I think it's fair to be at least a little bit concerned about that. He could be running back too, right? Maybe he could put on some weight and then attack his sophomore season kind of like Kyron Williams did, because there have been a lot of comparisons with Nolan James Jr. and Kyron Williams. So I'm not ruling him out. I'm just pointing out that, like, even though people have talked about him really highly, he didn't really produce in that way when he was out there on the field. I would be shocked if Jabron Payne is on the team next year. I fully anticipate he will hit the transfer portal because he will have his degree, and I don't think he is in Notre Dame's plans moving forward. And then you have 2 unknowns in the incoming freshmen. I think Javian Osborne and Jonas Walton could be terrific players at Notre Dame. They likely will be. They were top 100 recruits coming out of high school. It was a really impressive haul for Jaywan Sider. But can you trust them as true freshmen? And will one of those players separate themselves to be a true running back 2 over Young and over Nolan James Jr.? I don't know. I mentioned this before. I said it on the show back in October, and it was not well received by people in the Notre Dame fan base. I think Notre Dame should look to add a running back in the transfer portal if it is the right fit. It is not a position of great need. They could absolutely go into next year with the guys they have on the roster, but hear me out. Notre Dame is going to be competing for a national championship next year. They're going all in. It's their second year with CJ Carr as the starter, probably the last year with CJ Carr as a starter, because if he plays as well as we all think he can, he's going to be in the NFL after next season and probably a top 10 pick. They also have a bunch of talent returning on defense. Leonard Moore has 1 more year left at Notre Dame. They're going to have Drake Bowen back, hopefully Adon Schuler back as well. So if you're going all in on next season, you can't really have any question marks at the running back position, especially if you're a team like Notre Dame who wants to run the ball. You've got a solid running back number 1 in Aeneas Williams. But you know what would be a great compliment to Aeneas Williams? Hollywood Smothers, the running back from NC State, who conveniently announced that he is entering the transfer portal on Thursday. I said he would be a great fit for Notre Dame back in October when Notre Dame was getting ready to play NC State. I was like, yo, if you watch this guy is good, and he fits the bill for what Notre Dame likes to do. They like to take the best players in the ACC, and particularly guys that they played against, like Malachi Fields, like Riley Leonard, like Bo Collins. Like, there is a pattern here, and I think Hollywood Smothers would absolutely fit that pattern. He has got elite speed and quickness. Marcus Freeman had extremely high praise for Hollywood Smothers before Notre Dame played NC State, and Smothers finished the year with 939 rushing yards on just under 6 yards per carry, plus he added nearly 200 receiving yards as well. And I understand that Notre Dame has depth in that room and that Hollywood Smothers is not the future. He only has 1 more year left of eligibility. But if you want proven elite players across the board, I think you might look to add Hollywood Smothers, and then think about that combo with Aeneas Williams as the every down back. Hollywood Smothers is the guy who could come in, catch passes, and be a true home run hitter. That's a great combo. And then it allows Keidron Young to kind of work his way back from injury It allows Nolan James Jr. one more year to really hit the weight room hard so that once, Smothers and maybe even Aeneas Williams leave, then he'll be ready to go. And then the freshmen aren't going to be tasked with playing earlier than they should. So again, I understand it's an unpopular opinion to some people that Notre Dame would dare look in the transfer portal for a running back. But hey, man, Hollywood Smothers is a really good player, and you could add to that room by adding him. Okay, next up, shifting gears from the transfer portal to Marcus Freeman, we have another two-part question from @mark.ward6 plus @anonymous4316. Do you think Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman are waiting to finalize a contract extension until other major coaching jobs are filled? And does not playing in a bowl game have any impact on Freeman's long-term future at Notre Dame? Let's just get this out of the way first. Notre Dame not playing in the college football playoff made retaining Marcus Freeman more complicated. That's not to say they won't bring him back because, as I've said multiple times on the show in the past couple of weeks, I think Marcus Freeman is going to be the head coach at Notre Dame in 2026, and we should get announcements soon, I would say maybe even before Christmas. But Notre Dame missed the playoff, and it made Marcus Freeman much more available to have conversations with other teams. But that's the playoff. The question was, does not playing in a bowl affect that? I don't really think it matters. Like, Marcus was not going to entertain other offers or other suitors while he was preparing for a playoff game. But the Pop-Tarts Bowl probably wasn't going to require the same attention from Marcus Freeman. And look, last year, the Chicago Bears were interested in Marcus Freeman, but Marcus was solely focused on leading his team through the playoffs. He is not like Lane Kiffin. And then the Bears ended up hiring Ben Johnson the day after the national championship. Would Marcus Freeman have been higher on the list had they not been so far, or had they not made it so far in the college football playoff? Maybe, we don't know. But it's a lot better for Notre Dame that all of his focus was on winning games at Notre Dame as opposed to having those conversations, because who knows? So the fact that Notre Dame isn't playing right now makes it easier for teams like the New York Giants to contact him directly. Will that lead to him signing with him? No, I don't think so. But we have to be honest about the situation here. Marcus has a lot more free time on his hands, so he's probably going to at least listen to what the Giants have to say. Diana Rossini from The Athletic had her column on when did she put it out? This past Saturday, that he's on their list of candidates. So I think it was, it's a factor in all of this stuff, but ultimately I don't expect it to be the deciding factor. As for the announcement, I think it's going to happen next week. Kind of calling my shot there. Both sides are working together, Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman. I think Freeman wants to be at Notre Dame. Notre Dame would obviously love to have him back for next season and well beyond that. And I don't think that Freeman is waiting to see what else is out there. The Giants are the main NFL team that has been interested in him, although Diana recently said that other NFL teams have their eye on him as well, but I think the Giants are the one team in the NFL who are the most serious about it at this point in time. So if Marcus doesn't want to go there, then I don't think there's another NFL job that's going to open up this cycle that would make him leave. So Marcus had more time to weigh his options. He was presented the opportunity to go to the NFL because of the Giants, but I still expect him to come back to Notre Dame. I just would have felt more confident if they made the playoffs and he wasn't even having those conversations to begin with. So yes, it complicated things, but overall, I still think Marcus is going to be back at Notre Dame next year and beyond. All right, at Wayne McVeigh 9467, how exactly did the defense turn around so dramatically after the first few games? Was it players getting comfortable in the new system under Chris Ash, different play calling, or a combination of both? I think it's a combination of both of those things, plus I think Notre Dame just mismanaged their personnel. I would love to hear Marcus Freeman or Chris Ash speak candidly about what changed this season when they speak to the media during the offseason, although I doubt we're ever going to get an answer because Chris Ash doesn't give you anything in his press conferences, and Marcus Freeman knows how to be coy when the moment presents itself. But I do know that Marcus was very fed up after the Purdue game, like the rest of us, right? But he recognized that they had a better chance of fixing things by keeping him as opposed to getting rid of him, and that proved to be right. I know that there are some people who believe that Marcus Freeman took over play calling for the defense after that Purdue game. That's false. And to those people who think that, why didn't Marcus Freeman ever have a play sheet? Why didn't the cameras ever show him on the sideline calling in plays to the linebacker, Drake Bowen or KVA, whoever had the green dot was on the field at that point in time? It's because it didn't happen. Chris Ash was calling the defense. So I think that Chris Ash simplified a lot of calls, probably went back to what they did under Al Golden, and the players just played better. And as I mentioned earlier, I think Personnel was a big factor. Think about it. Tate Johnson barely played against Miami and didn't start against Texas A&M, and Jalen Stroman got cooked a couple times. Then Tate Johnson took over that safety spot. Carson Hobbs played 71 snaps in the first 2 games. He played 31 in the remaining 10. Devontae Smith got healthy. KVA played a lot more at linebacker. Leonard Moore was hurt against Texas A&M, and then he missed a couple games after that. They were also playing Dallas Golden in the nickel spot. True freshman. Mark Zachary, true freshman, getting playing time while Leonard Moore was out. And then Christian Gray was out there, but he wasn't healthy. He was playing hurt. So, yeah, part of it was scheme. Part of it had to do with the guys didn't know where they needed to be. And also, their best players were not out there on the field. So all of those things mattered. I would also love to hear why Mike Mickens played the guys he did at the start of the year, and then, why he decided to ultimately change that. It was just really surprising that Mickens didn't have a better handle of his personnel before the season, because he's obviously a terrific coach. And also, we have to be honest, the schedule did get softer. Arkansas had a good offense for sure, and even though they were able to get some yards, the defense really tightened up, and then they kind of cruised the rest of the season, I should say. So I give Chris Ash credit. I give Marcus Freeman credit. I give all the players credit for how they were able to fix things on the fly. And I'm really excited about what this team can do in year 2 under Chris Ash, because they were playing like one of the best defenses in college football at the end of the season. I think they're going to be much more improved in year 2, just like we saw with Al Golden in year 1 compared to year 2. All right, we've got a few more questions left. And coming up, could Notre Dame reunite with the Big East? And is it time to start believing in Notre Dame men's basketball again? It's coming up next. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Irish with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonirish.supercast.com. That's lockedonirish.supercast.com, or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Ever feel like your money just disappears every month? It happens fast, a few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances, because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Rocket Money finds subscriptions you forgot you were paying for and helps you clean them up quickly. Seeing all your spending on one dashboard makes it easier to understand where your money is going. I like how Rocket Money automatically builds budgets based on past spending, and it keeps you on track without overthinking it. Having the app find good times to save each month keeps you consistent with your financial goals. So take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, we are back with the Friday Mailbag, and our next question comes from @KennethHerney1791. With the position group turnover that happens every year, it's easy to assume everything is going to be awesome. Realistically, what do you think Notre Dame's weakest position group will be next season? So this is difficult to say right now because we don't know which players are staying and which ones are going, but I think it's fair to say that it's probably tight end at this point in time. And again, we also don't know who they're going to add in the transfer portal, so this answer is fluid. It could change in a couple weeks, right? But I would say tight end because you're going to lose Eli Raridan, your starter, who had a really good year this season. And Ty Washington, his backup, just didn't really show that much this year. I had higher expectations for him. I didn't really think he was going to be a big-time receiving target, but he also wasn't that good of a blocker. So right now, Cooper Flanagan is going to be your number one tight end, and he is coming off a very serious Achilles injury. Jack Larson hasn't really competed for playing time yet. I don't think you can rely on him to take a huge step next year. Maybe he does, and he proves me wrong, but I just don't see that being the case at this point in time. And also, you have two incoming freshmen who I'm really excited about, but it's probably going to take some time for those guys as well to get physically acclimated. Now, could Ian Premer go out there and make a couple big catches for you? Yeah, but I don't think he's going to be your every down tight end. And then there was a freshman on the team this past year, James Flanagan, who I was really high on going into the season. I predicted he would be the most impactful true freshman. That was a miss. I think it's actually something I'm going to do this offseason. I'm going to go back and look at all my preseason predictions I made going into 2025 and then see what I got right, see what I got wrong. Well, I got that one wrong for sure. James Flanagan redshirted. I still think he could be a really good player next year. The staff is really high on him, but is he ready to be tight end one? I don't know. So if you've got Cooper Flanagan as your number one option at tight end next year, who has in his career 5 total catches and 74 receiving yards, that's not a great place to be. But again, I think they could potentially add someone in the transfer portal. Cooper Flanagan could be healthy and just ready to ascend next year. So that's the number one position right now. Beyond that, I do have some concerns about defensive tackle, but that could change dramatically based on what happens in the transfer portal. All right, next up, at Holtz My Beer, one of the best usernames we get in the mailbag. If Notre Dame joins the Big East for Olympic sports, what happens with football? Do they try to lock in long-term deals with teams like Clemson, Florida State, USC, and Miami? And if that's not possible, what is the alternative? So the idea of Notre Dame moving to the Big East for their Olympic sports has been talked about a lot on the show if Notre Dame does end up breaking off from the ACC. But I think they would have to try and arrange some sort of partnership with another big conference like the Big Ten or the SEC. I really doubt the Big Ten would even be open to that. They'd probably be all or nothing. The relationship between the Notre Dame and the Big Ten has never been good, dating back over 100 years ago. So I don't expect Notre Dame and Big Ten to have this 5-game arrangement like Notre Dame has with the ACC, but the SEC might. Greg Sankey and Pete Bavacqua are allies in the space, you could say, and I think that Greg Sankey recognizes that Notre Dame could provide some good for their teams, especially now that they are moving to a 9-game conference schedule every year, but each team is required to play at least one Power 4 team every year or Notre Dame, so they would fit that mold. I don't think it would be a 5-game slate like what the ACC gives Notre Dame every single year, but could it be a 3-game slate? That would work, right? Because then for the SEC, that's 3 SEC teams every year who don't have to go out of their way to schedule a non-conference game, so it takes some work off their plate. And then for Notre Dame, I think adding 3 SEC teams every single year would drastically improve the schedule. And Notre Dame already has a long-term deal with Clemson. They have one with Navy. I think the USC one is going to get resolved here this offseason, and I expect Stanford to be on the schedule in the future as well. So if they have a 3-game deal with the SEC, and then they have those other games that are basically all rivals at this point, because now we can include Clemson as a rival now that they have that long-term contract, that's 7 games right there. They're working on setting something up with Miami as well. That could be 8. So that would put them in a much better spot because then you can fill out the rest with like MAC teams, although Notre Dame doesn't have a great history against MAC teams under Marcus Freeman. But I think you could fill out the remaining 4 games. Ultimately, I think if they go fully independent again with no partnerships with these other conferences, that would be really hard because so many of these schedules are made so far in advance. And even though teams out there would love to play Notre Dame, I don't buy into the freeze-out thing at all. It's just really hard to schedule 12 competitive games every single year. So I think Notre Dame is going to try to avoid that and set up something with another power conference. All right, last one. It's a basketball question. It comes from @Bob Feeney. Is it worth having hope that the men's basketball team can make March Madness again? Yes. For the first time in a long time, I think Notre Dame might actually be able to make it to the NCAA tournament in men's basketball. I wouldn't necessarily bet on it right now, but I have hope, right? And it's been a long time since we've even had that. And that's pretty crazy considering their best player, Marcus Burton, just went down with another significant injury, second year in a row that has happened. But Notre Dame is 9-3 on the season. They've won their last 4 in a row. They've had some big wins over Missouri and TCU, and I understand that no one is going to confuse Missouri and TCU for Duke and North Carolina, but considering what Notre Dame men's basketball has been in the past few years, I will take it. They've been shooting the ball much better. Jalen Harrelson has been showing flashes of his 5-star potential, and the offense just looks different without Marcus Burton on the floor, probably because it had to be different, right? They couldn't just rely on him to make plays. They've had to move the ball around better, and plus, Cole Serta has come on as a shooter. Braden Shrewsbury just had one of the best games of his career, and the team around him has just been shooting a lot better as well. So this is really exciting stuff because things were looking grim early on in the year, and the team is actually fun to watch. They look like a competent basketball team. Not always. There are still times where you're like, you want to pull your hair out, but they look a lot better, and they should, right? Marcus Shrewsbury has been around for a little bit now. They can't still be in rebuild mode, and I think that they're making significant strides. Now, how will they fare in the ACC? We'll find out, right? The ACC as a whole has been down in basketball in recent years, but for the first time in a long time, I feel optimistic about Notre Dame men's basketball. All right, that's going to do it for today's mailbag edition of Locked On Irish. As always, thank you for making this show your first watch or listen of the day and for tuning in all week long. I truly appreciate the support. Make sure that you're subscribed to the Locked On Irish YouTube channel, following the show on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, or if you're listening to the podcast, a quick rating and review really helps us grow. One quick programming note before we get out of here. The schedule is going to be a little bit different next week with Christmas coming up. I'm going to be traveling quite a bit all across the country, and I'm going to be taking some time to spend with my family, but I'm still going to have episodes coming out as news breaks. So make sure that you are subscribed and following along on social media so you don't miss anything. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the holidays, and we'll talk again soon.